I think Kamala Khan is significant, one, because she's female, and she's Muslim, and she's teen, which means that she would be relevant to a much wider demographic. Oh, and she's also a minority. Altogether, I think it speaks to an immigrant experience and makes comic books more accessible to the immigrant community. And by accessible, I mean it's a lot more relatable. I think a lot of why Kamala Khan is significant, besides just who she stands for, is that she's the first, I guess, pop culture figure and among a group of people that are highly underrepresented, again, minority, Muslim, females, teens, who speaks for herself. So it's one area where you actually have a discourse going on, a voice where it's a Muslim American talking about Muslim issues, but not about, oh, discrimination and whatnot. It's simply about how to negotiate being Muslim and being female, and how all of that goes into being American and understanding yourself as being American and still being Muslim and still being female, and finding ways to actually see that all three of those supposedly problematic identities work together pretty well. And it's Kamala Khan is interesting because she doesn't just come out and, oh, I am this already fully formed person. She is actively struggling with all of these multiple identities that the media will say don't go together. I mean, how many times have you seen, a Muslim, and you have the hijab as one aspect of the oppressed Muslim or the brainwashed Muslim woman, and then you have the other of beatings and stonings and burnings, all of these honor killings that were in conversation a couple years ago. And what you have here is someone who does sort of deal with some of the structural, cultural problematics that are created through the enforcement of different cultural norms, like segregation of men and women, and feeling then like a second-class citizen as articulated by the West, but then understanding after she speaks to her imam later, the understanding that it's actually not about the segregation, that it's simply a different cultural norm and should be viewed through a different lens.
It's a meat and potatoes superhero comic in some respects, and that means that it's hitting certain beats. It's pushing certain buttons, it's using certain familiar conventions, and it belongs to a genre that the other examples you just named don't. It belongs to this superhero tradition. So it gives people a chance to take a very popular tradition, a very popular idiom, a familiar kind of iconic part of American pop culture, the superhero, and use it to tell a different kind of American story about a different kind of American identity, one that we've neglected until recently. So whereas there are many comics in different genres from many different cultures that can speak to the contentious and complicated political issues of today, the cultural politics and national politics, the superhero brings with it a set of constraints or limitations, and also a set of possibilities and familiar kinds of images. And Kamala Khan is that kind of identity narrative. It's one as a superhero story taking place in the Marvel Universe, in the wake of the Marvel films and television, in the wake of the huge growth of interest even beyond comic books in that story world. It's a place where the pop culture vocabulary of the superhero, both in comics and film, video games, and all of that, can be put to use telling one of these identity stories, which doesn't make it lesser or greater than a graphic memoir like Arab in America or Persepolis that tells comparable identity stories. But it means that it has the popular recognition value of the Marvel Universe on its side. I mean, it still is a wish-fulfilling tale of super-heroic adventure involving super beings, both cosmic and terrestrial, doing super stuff in a super world. It is all of those things that people who read Marvel comics or watched Marvel movies for a long time come to expect from that kind of story, in addition to being a sort of sensitive depiction of an Islamic American identity. So, I mean, I think the short answer would be that it has the growing popularity of superheroes even beyond comic books and film and television and other media on its side that provides an inroad for people who might otherwise not catch the other identities happening in other kinds of comic books, but they're familiar with the fact that their friends, dig the Marvel Universe, for example, or they have conversations about the Marvel films. Suddenly, here's a way of having that conversation while also having a conversation about race, religion, or identity. One doesn't preclude the other.
Having a character exist like Kamala is very important because it's one of the first character is that shed come light on the American Muslim society and what females go through in order for them to break free from the cultural bonds and succeed in the free world. They portrayed to her in a proper way and showed the audience that even with a protective family, you can stay and make a difference and help other people.